Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Sense of Things. And we keep going and going. So, on today's show, Ron has got some information on U.S. inflation on different products, geopolitical risks. We're going to talk about private credit and default rates. I've got a little bit of some economic indicators like leading economic indicators and the JOLTS numbers that we'll go over, just get a picture of where the economy is and where the markets are going. So stay tuned. We'll be right back on in just a second. Hey, everybody, to the show. Ron, how are you, my friend?
Good morning. Yep, never a dull moment as usual. I think we're headed lower. I've been saying that for a couple of weeks now. I don't believe any rhetoric from any of the politicians. Military operations are not winding down, and I think the fever pitch is definitely rising. So risks are to the downside, not to the upside. It doesn't mean there isn't opportunities.
Yeah. And I think this is the opportunity when you start to look at where the baby got thrown out with the bathwater. It's a great time to start picking up some things. I know we last week pecked into a couple areas that I'd been watching, but yeah, I think it's still, we're still carrying cash at this point. I'm still looking to snag some stuff on a pullback or something along those lines. If things don't continue to go, we're closer to the end than the beginning is what I would say, just from a military standpoint. But
Separate conversation to disagree.
yeah,
Nothing has ever ended quickly in the Middle East, ever.
no,
Ever.
nothing. Yeah, because I mean, you're still going to have the crazy wackadoodles that are still, unfortunately, the crazy wackadoodles are still in charge, and they keep trying to play the same game that they've always played. Oh yeah, we'll tell you one thing and do the exact opposite. And I loved this morning I saw something, the demands that Iran has, and okay, no more bombing, no more sanctions, and you have to all the U.S. military presence out of the Middle East, and we want to have control of the Straits of Hormuz, and you have to pay us. I know.
First of all, this last one, Iran will die
Yeah,
before they give up their control over the Strait of Hormuz, because they know without that they have nothing.
they've none. Yeah,
Let's
there are
leave
paper.
it at that. So that's why I know this is not going to end quickly. And if we bomb their oil refineries, oil's going to go to 200.
Mm.
So this is not going to end quickly. Military operations are not winding down. It's going to get worse before it gets better. We could disagree. That's a conversation and a podcast for a different time.
Absolutely. All right, what happened in history?
All right. All right. We not a lot, but a couple of interesting things.
Okay.
1929, Herbert Hoover has telephone installed in Oval Office just in
Nice.
time for a market crash.
A telephone and a ticker tape that just went.
Oh, I'm sure the ticker tape was already there, but yeah, but interesting because people started getting the telephones 10, 15 years before. You figured they would have been not necessarily ahead of the curve, but
At least on
it was a little bit
par
rise.
timing, yeah.
1939, first NCAA basketball tournament is held. University of Oregon defeats the
Safety school of the Midwest.
you know what? I wanted to see what the score was. The score was probably like 38-33 or something. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
The way they used to do it with the set shots, it was unchallenged. It was so funny looking at video back then.
Oh, I know. And just how slow
100 points every game.
that, and just how slow the game moved. It was just, you watched, and it was literally like watching people run through honey.
It's like watching almost a soccer match evolve.
Yep.
We're gonna be strategic, and no, they're fast break, no such thing. No alley, no dunking,
No dunking.
no 3-pointers.
No dunking at all. So
1953, Dr. Jonas Salk announces polio vaccine.
nice.
I thought it was earlier than that, but that sounds about right.
Now, 1950s, yeah, and there was like a massive kind of outbreak of measles or of polio leading up to that. We're watching something about the history of Mary Berry. If you're a cook, you understand who she is, but she was down for 6 to 8 months with polio when she was relatively young, when she was probably in her like like 18, 19 years old or so.
Yeah. Elvis Presley, 1958, is inducted into the U.S.
Yep.
Army, and this was fixed. You
Yep.
know that government didn't like Elvis Presley, and somehow his number came up and he went in, and they were disappointed when he didn't want to be part of their entertainment group. He
Yeah.
wasn't going to give in.
No.
Listen, he was only 23 at the time.
Yep.
I give him all the props in the world.
I do too. And he was, yeah, I'm serving as a soldier. I'm going to be a tanker, and that's it. I thought that impressed the hell out of me because he was a massive patriot. And okay, if I'm going to serve like everybody else.
But that was fixed by the government.
Yeah. But then he lived off with
Godfather
GI
opens
Blues
in-
right afterwards. So.
Yeah, Godfather opens in theaters in 1972.
Yeah.
1979, Eric Clapton marries Patty Boyd. Who was Patty Boyd married to before Eric Clapton?
No idea.
George
Mick Jagger.
Harrison.
George Harrison. Okay.
And
That's
Eric
just-
Clapton and George Harrison refer to themselves as husbands-in-law.
Yeah.
And actually, the reason why Patty Boyd left George Harrison was because of his depression and drug use. Why did she leave Eric Clapton? Because of his depression and heroin.
Depression and drug use. Yeah, they're basically the same guy, just two different bands, basically.
And what movie did she make a cameo appearance in?
No clue. I couldn't even tell you who she is.
Oh, 1964, Hard Day's Night. That's how she met George Harrison.
Of course.
1983, first heart
Oh.
transplant patient dies. His name was Barney Clark after 112 days.
Yeah.
1998, the FDA approves Viagra.
I remember that. I
Health
remember it.
lifeline.
I remember hearing about it, and I'm like, had I just thought to invest in because I forget
Pfizer?
Pfizer. If I'd have thought to just throw some money in Pfizer at that point, life would have been great. Yeah.
What can I tell you? There's a lot more to say.
Yeah.
2008, Heaven's Gate. I remember this very well.
Yep.
Cult members found dead outside of San Diego by
Mhm.
Marshall Applewhite. And if you look at pictures of this guy, this Jim Jones looked like a cult leader. This guy looked like a psychopath. He was a wackadoo. But yeah, it's just amazing how lost people will just follow just about anybody.
You look at David Koresh, same thing.
He looked like a hippie. He didn't really look like a cult leader.
Yeah,
but he
true.
was,
Yeah. Jim Jones definitely looked like a cult leader. He had that, yeah.
Yeah, that was Koresh was in Waco. That was near you somewhere, right?
Yep, between us and Dallas, in between.
So here we go. So just obviously these things will become out of date pretty soon. But by U.S. inflation by product type, beef and veal. I got to tell you, I'm not a huge steak eater anymore, but I like a good steak barbecue. Holy crap! I could not believe the price, just even of hamburger meat. It was insane. Car maintenance and repair. I didn't see that. I didn't see that much with home insurance. I'm not a tobacco person. Sugar and sweets. I'm not a sugar and sweet person. But a lot of the other hospital services, things like that, I haven't seen it in my municipality trash prices yet. But on the bottom, obviously, this was before the war started. Gas has obviously gone up. And I don't know. I do, but I don't really see a huge difference there. Telephone service I could see going down. I don't understand why women's apparel goes down. Women will buy clothes 10-1 over men. You figure that would go up, men's clothes would go down. And IT hardware and services, I really haven't seen that too. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think just with the IT hardware and all that, it's moving so fast that the existing stuff just keeps going down in price. The new stuff is up significantly. Yeah, I look at beef. The beef one is probably the one that I notice most because we do like a nice steak on the weekends. And man, I have to think twice about it when we're buying something now because it's holy crap, a decent steak. We'll buy ours at Costco because we can get them for a lot less. But man, you go to the grocery store and try and buy a steak and it's $25 for a friggin' steak. I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it.
It's a fish eater too, salmon, other stuff. It's relatively held, but the beef, that's brewing. And that's been going up for a while. This isn't just recently.
Yeah, that's an issue. That's really more of a supply issue than anything. It's just we got behind over the last 5 years ish. They got behind. It was you had a lot of drought and stuff like that, and it just
Uh,
okay. They can't raise the cows, or they can't raise as many of them, and that just hits us across the board. I don't see that going down anytime soon at this point. And of course, with diesel fuel up, that costs money across the board and everything else. So I think I would venture to say food costs are going to go up a little bit with this conflict going on over there.
no, no doubt about it. No, they're talking about that because of wheat shortages
Yep.
and other things. Okay.
Well, yeah, the largest or producer in the world is Ukraine.
Yeah.
We've dealt with that for 4 years as it is.
Yep. So here we go. B of A did a survey of fund managers. Biggest geopolitical risk. Look, I know this is pretty freaking obvious, but geopolitical conflict is now off the charts. I don't know how it wasn't higher earlier. Inflation obviously is an issue. I can't believe that they're actually potentially talking about a Fed rate hike. I don't know why we would necessarily need to lower rates at the moment, but
Mm,
to raise them, that would be interesting.
it would be insane.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I
there's
have
no
another
reason.
chart here on private credit, so we'll have to talk about that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and I think honestly, I think the private credit side is becoming a bigger and bigger risk at this point. Hang on.
I'll tell you,
Um,
private credit, I'm still trying to understand it. I
yeah.
get what it is, but the private credit versus the banks, a lot of people are like,
Mm.
oh no, is this another financial crisis again? Different, but it smells
Yeah.
the same. It smells
Yeah.
similar just because of the overall credit risks
Well, I think
and the
yeah,
redemptions. Remember with the redemptions, it's not liquid.
no. No, and it's not, and people can start to demand it, and that's where these are not regulated in a lot of cases. It's a shadow banking system that's out there, and these things a lot of times are set to higher interest rates and stuff like that. So as companies struggle a little bit, I think the biggest area that really has gotten hurt is the software area because of the threat of AI. And yes, it's a threat of like these software companies aren't going to figure out how to use AI, but I think it's another case of throw the baby out with the bathwater, which then starts to affect downhill the private credit side.
Yeah.
I think the good part about all of this is our banks are very healthy. Part of the issue with private credit is we tightened up the banks so much that they weren't able to lend. And so you had this kind of shadow banking world show up. I remember both getting things from the Bureau of Labor Statistics and things like that. Somehow got into this group where they surveyed me as a business owner. And so I'd have to answer those surveys and stuff like that. And then my former business partner was on a board with the Fed as a financial advisor. He was on a board with the Fed and he was pretty well known in the industry. And that was their biggest concern was this the Fed was trying to get their hands around what this whole private credit industry and shadow banking world looked like a few
Yeah.
years back.
Sometimes it takes a while, but the one I've been
Yeah.
talking about for a while is the weakening dollar. We'll have to see.
Yeah,
All right.
although it's the dollar strengthened here over the last several months, so it's not weakened as much as you would think.
It's a safety trade, but here we go.
Mm.
We all know where gas prices are. Here are the averages for the month by month since over the last 4 years. We're at
Mhm.
388. I know gas is a lot cheaper in Texas than it is in Arizona and California, but 388. This is definitely going to cut into the lower and the middle class socioeconomic
Oh, it is. Yeah, you've seen a
budgets.
dollar rise in a month, so this is a major factor, and it is gonna have a
And if they're filling up
it's
two,
gonna have
three
a
times a
major
month, it
effect
adds
on
up.
I think what you're gonna cover next, it's definitely gonna talk a little bit about the defaults and stuff like that too, is man, all of a sudden you see that much of a move in fuel prices. It's a big deal.
Yeah, so the private credit risks here are the following.
Mm,
So we've seen where it is, and things, it's that infamous things happen slowly, then quickly. All you need is a couple of things to break. Fear sets in, the computers take over, and things get pushed down. It's
mhm.
already happened to a lot of the companies that have been exposed to the
Yeah,
private credit, but what is the ripple effect to it? We'll have to see, not wishing for a damn thing. But the other thing too is this is where the big money is. This is
yeah,
where the institutional money is. If
Mm.
this thing breaks, the average person can't do anything about it. And I
No.
don't know what the government's going to come in and do as a backstop or a safety net.
Yeah, because the Fed can't really step in these cases with private credit. And I mean,
Well, they can, but there'll be some major political pushback.
yeah. And this is the Bear Stearns, and I'm not saying we're in that. This is the Bear Stearns, Lehman, Bank of America kind of situations where that stuff comes unglued really fast and then the government has to step in. But I don't think it's that bad this time. However, the problem is we just don't know where it is because this stuff is not really reported. You find out about it later and you don't know at the time.
Yep. All right. What do you got?
All right, let me jump in here. I don't have a ton of stuff, but leading on the geopolitical piece of it that we were talking about there, let me bring this sucker up here. Uh, There we go. Here. Hang on, I'm trying to find which screen this thing is on. That's not the one I want. Okay, let me get out of here for a second, come back into it because for some weird reason, it's not bringing up the screen that I want it to bring up here. Ah, here we go. Okay.
Here we go.
All right, cool. I think with the geopolitical risk, what does that really mean? Yes, wars go on. Yes, this could go on for a long time. But what's the reality? Kind of how did the stock market perform as a result of that? If you look at everything from World War II through the Afghanistan war, 3 months before, in a lot of cases, interestingly enough, we were seeing the market pull back a little bit early on in February, even before we got involved in this. The market had started off the year good and then stumbled a little bit. So, interestingly enough, follows the history, especially in modern war. The Gulf War was interesting because 3 months before it was actually up pretty significantly and then got whacked at the beginning of the war. And then afterwards, things mellowed out. But typically, what happens 3 months after the start, you look at modern time periods, Gulf War, we were up 18%, Iraq War, 13%, Afghanistan War, 10.4. I think although we disagree on when the conflict ends, I don't necessarily believe that we are at the high point and we're going lower. I think we're meandering around where the low point is going to be. And I think there's opportunity on the upside. That's personally, in my point of view, it's why I've been keeping some cash on the sidelines because I'm starting to go shopping for things that have really gotten whacked during this time period that I
There's
like to
definitely
invest in.
things selling at a discount, not a steep
Yep.
discount, but a discount.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's some areas really that have gotten whacked hard that I like to invest in that I'm just holding off for right now, but I will start to dip my toe back into them. We start to look at economics, the economics, there wasn't anything interesting this week. No big announcements, anything like that on the Econo Day. We get consumer sentiment tomorrow. When we go into this next phase here, we had this discussion last week when we were talking about consumer sentiment and that it's been negative and all this. It's intriguing to me when it comes to consumer sentiment. Although the markets have kept going up, the economy's kept going up, consumer sentiment, if you look at it right now in the leading economic indicators, consumer expectations for business conditions have been negative for 6 months. Quite frankly, they've been negative since 2021. So if you look at the leading economic indicators, they peaked right after we came out of COVID and peaked, and they've been just on this continual downtrend. Ron and I have had this discussion about LEI and said it usually is an indicator of a potential recession and all that. It's been dominated by this consumer expectations. And quite frankly, I just think the world is very negative. And I blame the press largely for this because of their just incessant need to constantly badger and talk about everything so poor. Nothing is ever good. It's always bad. And I think people are just responding to that. Between social media and the media, they're responding to it and they're negative, but they still go out and spend money. They still do all this stuff. So as we look at the LEI that came in, there was a decline once again for this month. If you look into that a little bit, the index, the leading credit index was up, which is good. The stock market was up. Now, I think if you look at January and February, this is going to be negative coming in. So we'll see that affected a little bit, which means we'll probably see a negative LEI. Interest rate spreads were up slightly once again, and they have been for the last 6 months. Once again, average consumer expectations, negative again, have continually been negative here. ISM new orders actually were up a little bit, which is interesting. They've been a big drag on the index for a while. Building permits were down, which we talked about last week. Average weekly hours are up, and they've been consistent there. New orders, manufacturing were down. Manufacturing, new orders, consumer goods, and then non-defense capital goods were both down. Average weekly initial claims or unemployment insurance up slightly, nothing big, and we've really not seen much of a change beyond that normal kind of 200,000 number. If you look at the index, the recession signals, we haven't really seen anything since August that even signaled a potential recession. It popped back up right after that. So,
What's
once
amazing
again,
is hovering. It's hovering.
yeah, it just can't, it keeps going around that time period, but it's really not done much when it comes to that. And it's interesting to see we're at that same level we were at right before the pandemic hit and the world's shortest recession, but we're just
Well, we were on our way to a recession out of
yeah,
2019 within
yeah,
a couple of years. We didn't hit it because of all the money. We didn't hit it in 2022, 2023 because of all the money flooding the
yep,
market. It kept the economy going, but we're
sure,
hovering. Notice it's not trending up.
yep. Yeah, but it's trending like it usually does. It just meanders around, although we're just at
It's
that.
not,
Yeah.
but it's not trending up as far as
No,
showing consistent growth rate, whether it's meandering or not. It's meandering around. We got there's the leading indicators are going nowhere.
yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I think part of it is this issue. I don't know if the weighting of this issue is causing it to not give us good signals or whatever, but yeah, it is what it is. It's the number that we have to work with. JOLTS numbers, job openings and labor turnover survey. This is one we follow on a somewhat regular basis when we remember to. It peaked way back here in the midst, at the top end of the pandemic, and this is that time period. I always say this was the open jobs everywhere. You had signs on every building saying jobs open, and nobody wanted to go back to work because they were getting paid by the government to not work. And the job openings have just continued to meander downward. I think part of this is a little bit of cautiousness from companies out there. But quite frankly, if you look at history, we're at 69.46 right now. Pretty much that's 2017 to 2018 numbers. We're at about the normal that we are. We're usually in that between 6,500 and 7,000 range, and we're normal there. So it's not anything that I would look at and go, oh my God, this is something different. It's the trend we've been on is that, like I said, 6,500 to 7,000 number when it comes to that. And maybe this is where we kind of settle in and just putt along like we've been putting along. I don't personally think there's a lot of job growth that is going to happen for a while, because if we have more job growth in the manufacturing sector or anything like that, that's years down the road because we got to build the factories and we've got to build that ecosystem. The job growth right now, I think, is going to be in the construction fields and things along those lines. I would foresee a little bit less job growth in the, let's say, technology spaces because of AI. I think those jobs are changing and they will be changing for a few years. So I could see it just hovering where it's at. So we're getting to that homeostasis at this point.
Yeah.
Well,
Look, for as long as I can remember in my adult life, anything around 5% unemployment was
yeah,
called full employment. So we're
that's it.
hovering under that. If it ticks up to 6 or 7, okay, that's recessionary conditions, potentially maybe 8%. But
Yeah.
5%, there is no anybody that pretty much wants or is able to have a job has a job.
Could get, yeah.
Look, there's a ton of lazy people. There's a lot of people sucking off the government teat. There's a ton of
Yeah,
people.
there is some legitimate, okay, jobs in the coding area and stuff like that are being replaced. You've got to upskill or change your skill sets at that point. Yeah,
Or
but a lot
transfer
of
them.
these companies are laying people off and then saying, okay, now, we're going to give you time to find a different job doing something different inside of our company, not just laying them off and getting rid of them.
The problem is, look, we all know that labor costs are the number one input
Yeah.
cost into running a business. And if you could do more with less, you're going to do it to
Yeah.
increase the bottom line. And
Sure.
that's just simple math. But the other part to that too is there's a lot of people not running businesses. There's a lot of people that are cogs in the wheel and they're happy checking in and they're happy clocking out at the end of the day. Those are the ones that are the most vulnerable. And it's not the
Mhm.
business's fault if they find productivity. And we could talk about this for
Yeah.
hours. Look, that's what happened to the auto industry. Yes, it
Mhm.
was a lot better, safer, and faster to use machines than 10 people to put a wheel on or whatever it
That's
was.
exactly, yeah. Yeah. And I mean,
Need
that's,
somebody going like this on a wheel from 12 to 3 with a wrench. We have a machine to do that now.
yeah. Yeah. And we could, one, people don't get hurt when we use machines to do a lot of the heavy lifting and things like that. And I think a lot of this kind of belief, which I think is somewhat, this belief, I think, from the working folks, and I think our president sometimes, that we're going to have all these jobs created by manufacturing. Yeah, there's going to be more manufacturing. I don't necessarily know if there's going to be more jobs as a result of that, because if I'm building a factory today, I sure as crap am not going to build a factory where it's mostly humans doing the work. I'm going to build a factory where I can be as efficient as possible. I can have machines do it. And quite frankly, I think we're probably about 10 to 20 years away from a large portion of our manufacturing done by robots.
Absolutely. Look, it's great that you want to bring back manufacturing here, but we all know that it's the input cost on why they left in the first place.
Yep.
Number one, and
Yep.
not to get into it, but the unions were at fault with a lot of that. But not, and it wasn't necessarily the inefficiency of the business.
No.
It's the input costs, the labor costs are the most expensive. So you could bring back manufacturing. If they're going to be more efficient, they're not going to need as many people as they did when they left.
Absolutely. Like I said, I was watching a video the other day with one of Elon's robots. And good Lord, you've seen those ones from Japan where they're just stumbling around and all that. This one was doing a dance and did a backflip and everything else. And I'm like,
Getting
yeah, they're getting to the point where they're pretty amazing. Elon's building an entire another factory here in Austin just for computer chips because he can't get enough of them from everywhere else in typical Elon fashion. Crap, if I can't get them, I'll just build them myself then at this
right.
point.
Well, the problem is when will they be cost effective enough to be like a computer in every
Yeah.
home?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, it's going to be an industry first. The days of us being the Jetsons and having Rosie, the robot, take care of it, that's a few years down the road, but I can clearly see, you see it with Amazon, with their robotics program. The majority of those jobs were humans were actually grabbing things, walking them over, putting them on a thing. None of that happens in these Amazon facilities anymore. It's all done by robots. The humans are only at the end to check it and make sure that it's the right stuff going out, which I'm not even sure that's as efficient as it could be.
I agree. All
So,
right.
all right. Thanks everybody for joining us once again. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Let us know, give us a comment and subscribe to the channel so we can take good care of you and give you all these things every week. So thanks a lot. And we'll see you guys back here the very next time.